Monday, April 6th at 5:30 p.m. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Elsa Payne, Chairman.
Present.
Ian Featherstone, Vice Chairman.
Present.
George D. Gwiz, Secretary, present. Chuck Worley.
Present.
John F. Claffey, Jr.
Present.
Jason Becker, absent.
Okay.
Robert Missell, absent.
Please
He's
resign.
resigned.
Resigned. Okay, thank you. And Peter Stump, alternate.
Present.
And Robert Singer, alternate.
Present.
Roll call has been taken, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Just for the record, I believe you're no longer alternates. Is that what I was told?
No, I think
Maybe
he's got
One would be elevated, but
Hasn't
I
happened?
don't know.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't aware of that.
have you heard?
No.
Oh.
He asked me if I would, but I haven't heard.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Take
Don't know.
that back. Okay, so for Jason, we'll see Peter.
Okay.
Is that, whose turn?
Well, you have to seat both.
Oh, we have to
You
see
can,
both?
yeah.
Well,
Unless
I
Jason.
saw-
Oh,
shows
Robert
up.
Missile, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Both
Yeah,
of them.
unless Jason
I
shows
saw
up.
Jason earlier. He should be
Okay.
Okay.
If you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda is an overview of the planning.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a special meeting because the scope of work that we're discussing today and the attached contract was an important step in the process. And I'd like to sort of take a step back to put that in perspective. Before I do, I want to thank John Wordham, Shipman and Goodwin for coming, and Chris Pierce is here from Wright Pierce, and also Dennis Greasy from the Department of Environmental Protection, all of whom have been part of this, developing this. But going back to the end of phase one, we had a brief opportunity to look at what our experience had been, get a chance to evaluate what worked, what didn't work, look at what circumstances had changed, because 6 years had gone by, so a considerable amount of time had elapsed between the original concept of this program, and look at the program moving forward, what we still had to do. And when we did that, it was obvious that we needed to refocus, readjust some, and we took a month or two to put together a proposal that really addressed those issues. At the same time, trying to synchronize three fundamental aspects of the program. One was the actual plan. The other was the phase two funding that we had applied for. And then what were our requirements under the stipulated judgment and our legal obligations to do this work. Dennis moved on the proposal fairly quickly, and in January he and John and Jim Minoli and I got together to go over that proposal, determine what we could develop as a realistic plan out of the effort we thought we needed to do. And two things emerged. One was an effort to continue the conventional work, and the second part was an effort to reevaluate the potential for community systems. That effort, we didn't have all of the information we wanted. We knew we had to put a scope of work together to get the information in order to make that evaluation again. And the first step was finishing the RFQ process and looking for the kind of engineering expertise that we wanted to have, and we've hired Wright Pierce as a result of that. The other part was in doing that, there was those engineering companies presented us with a scope of work that they, at that point, thought was a reasonable effort to get at the information we wanted. So starting with that, we proposed it to Dennis, and over a period of some time went back and forth to develop the scope of work and contract that you have before you tonight. So I'd like to ask Dennis to just kind of go over a little bit about where the scope started and some of the reasons why we ended up where we are and what we expect to get out of it.
Okay, that's sort of a broad, with your permission, Madam Chairman, since you guys are following
Yes,
the
go
rules.
ahead, thank you.
I'm
Welcome.
going to come over here a little bit so most people don't have to turn around. So, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dennis Gracie. There's actually several people here that I hadn't met until tonight. The rest of you are way too tired of me already, but that's okay. So, I mean, basically Steve's correct. You got to a point near the end of phase one where you're realizing that the costs for making individual on-site repairs were a bit more than what Fuss & O'Neill had estimated back in 2008. And started posing the question again, well, wait a minute, is this really the most cost-effective way to serve our community? Now, at the time the vote was taken and the facilities plan was prepared, the attitude in the town hall by the leaders, the powers that be, was basically there will be no publicly owned facilities. That was the rule. Those people have since left, or some of them at least. And the question was posed back to me, well, was that something that was scientifically agreed to? I said, no, that was a political decision. Your representatives came to us and said, here's what we want to do. And we said, all right, this will work. Time has passed, the costs are more expensive than what you expected. So when I was approached again about, well, gee, you know, we've got phase two coming, and I actually heard a question come up in a couple of your meetings about, well, why are we doing it this way? I thought it might be a good time to come back down anyways, and as it turned out, we were going to be proceeding in with this. So, short version is this. You're taking a look at this point at whether or not, given today's technology and the costs that you actually have a much better handle on, whether you're still going down the best path toward the town. So the question, the comparison has to be, do you keep fixing things on site, knowing that they're more costly than what you had initially anticipated? Or do you go back and re-look at the potential of moving the wastewater to another site somewhere for disposal, treatment, and then dispersal into the ground? And that's the simplest version I can sum down to. When I discussed it with your representatives before, I said basically we need to keep this short and simple and to the point. You've got a deadline coming up at the end of September. That's the second phase of the stipulated judgment. And I will sort of make a point here. We use the term phase one and phase two a little too loosely at times. If we're talking phase one clean water fund, that means one thing. Phase one stipulated judgment is not necessarily related to that. They happen to coincide the first time. They're not coinciding right at the moment. So we have to be sort of careful what terms we use at which time. That's why you'll see, if you ever see my letters, you'll actually see me use the stipulated judgments reference rather than the phrase phase two. With clean water fund, I'll just say phase two and leave it at that. So what you're looking at right now, and what you've hired Wright Pierce to do, is go back and relook at sites that have been looked at before, plus look at sites that you have not looked at before. As time goes on, properties become available or opportunities become available that weren't in existence once upon a time. I'm having the same thing done, and they're almost completed with it over in Clinton. That was a much more comprehensive evaluation. They took a lot more time, but they had more time to use on it. You've got a limited amount of time here at this point. So the point here is to have Wright Pierce go out, have you folks select with between the two of you several sites that you think might have some potential, reevaluate those, and then get back to me, well, after you've decided, get back to me and say, yes, we think we want to proceed with this, or no, it's still not working out. We either can't find the sites, or the sites are so remote that it's not worth pursuing. As a general rule, although I will defer to your consultant, too far to be not worth doing is basically the Stop and Shop Plaza. You go much beyond that point, you might as well put it in the river. And I don't know if Town Hall's attitude toward putting it in the river has changed. Chuck, I'll defer to you or George on that one. Has anybody said don't put it in the river? Would you prefer not to answer the question? Okay.
Well,
Well, I can
Realistically.
speak as a representative of this board. I don't know that I can speak for town hall.
Okay.
no.
Well, I'll leave it that way for the moment. The reason why is after a certain amount of time of moving the water, you start spending more and more money every foot of pipe you pay for.
Sure.
And the cost of building a large on-site system here becomes prohibitive compared to just running the pipe to the river. So I'm arbitrarily for the moment saying it's about where Stop and Shop is. You don't want to go much beyond that, otherwise, realistically, from an engineering point of view, it might as well be in the river. Politically, that may not be the thing you can do. I'm dealing with, again, with the same thing in Clinton, where they're doing everything they can to keep it out of the Hammonasset. And they're going quite a distance with their flows, but they understand the trade-offs. You guys need to understand the same thing. Could you build a pipe to the river? Technically, yes. Economically, maybe. Socially and politically, I'm not going to try and answer that question for you. You guys know your community better than I do, even though I've been around here for a while.
And it's not just Old Saybrook, it's other towns as well.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about the other towns since they're building sewers at this point, which is something I never thought I would see. That's a discussion not for tonight.
The other way.
Yeah, the other way, but that's where the easiest way to go was. That's the real short version there. Was there something I missed, Steve, that you wanted me to cover, or?
No, just emphasizing that we had originally thought the scope was more work than what we ended up with, because we really just honed it in terms of time restraints.
Yeah.
And to for efficiency to get at what we need, and we sort of designed it so that we can move ahead if we want to go to step 2 fairly easily, and it all kind of flows logically to go from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
If it starts, it has the flexibility to continue on if it's working out. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that. The scope itself, as you saw, is only.
I have a
about-
question. By the railroad station, which is not too far from Stop and Shop, it looks like we're considering going in a direction of 186 affordable homes.
Yep, I still keep hearing that.
So we have to take that into account in our thinking and what you're saying too.
Right, and I've heard that site is on again, off again several times from politicians, from developers. I don't know. Does anybody have a better feel for what's going on with that site?
They're very optimistic about it now.
Okay. It's spring, everyone's optimistic about something. Yeah, that's about as far as I would go, though. And realistically, if that site were available, it's probably a good site. I don't know what capacity it's got. You've got other properties in the immediate area of downtown. You've got a few properties here. I don't know what's left of this site. This is the one you guys evaluated back in, I hate to say this, 2002? 13 years ago? Can't be that long. It's this area right here. It's about the 2002 report that I made sure Chris got a copy of or had reference to, and you guys found it eventually, right? If you didn't, yeah, if you didn't, I had it. So you're gonna be looking at a variety of those. The one change, and this change was actually in the works when we switched over and decided to do all on-site, is, and I've pretty much stated this before, I will be working with my subsurface group. Now today, if you were to walk into that office and propose, well, we want to put something on this site, they would tell you you need 21 days time of travel for disinfection purposes. That's pretty much a standard in the industry. But that's a standard for private developments, not for municipal facilities. I mean, frankly, I've got treatment plants all over the state that don't have any time of travel. We have what's called chlorine or ultraviolet light, or we don't use it in Connecticut, but ozone as well. There's several different ways to accomplish the same type of disinfection without using 21 days time of travel. Warren Herzig, my counterpart predecessor over at the subsurface side, and I had actually come to an agreement on how to do this. It was all written up, but when your consultants and your board came back and said, no, we've got the on-site solution, we basically pushed that off to one side. That's still written up. I have run it past the subsurface group. They are receptive. They didn't sign off on it, but they're receptive to continuing the discussion at this point. So that's the other reason this may open a couple properties that weren't available before. So there may be something there, there may not. I don't know. I don't know what the capacity left is on some of the sites that you're already using. Everyone keeps talking about the high school site, and I've heard a couple people say, well, gee, yeah, but there can't be that much there, and I've heard a couple other people say, it's not there. I don't know. No one's been on the site in years. The Donnelly site, same thing. That predates the permitting system, so we don't know what it's rated for or what its capacity is. And there's several other properties that I'm basically relying on you guys to bring to Wright Pierce's attention if you haven't done so already. Let them screen it down and come up with a recommendation for what they want to look at. That's about it, unless people have specific questions. And please, don't be afraid to ask about other things. If there's something you're short on, it's part of what I'm down here for, is to answer questions.
Okay, does anyone care to ask a question? Yes, Chuck.
You mentioned only cost reasons for us looking at the study.
Mm-hmm.
Are there environmental reasons for us to also consider this? Can you think of any environmental reasons why?
Well, what you're doing right now, the upgrade of the systems, is doing a fairly good job of cleaning up the environment. You're still using septic systems that don't, except we haven't put the AT systems in yet. Septic systems in and of themselves don't remove nitrogen to any great degree. They'll remove some, but it's not their design. The original intent of doing the advanced treatment systems here was to reduce some of the nitrogen, basically get the equivalent of what you would have gotten out of a treatment plant. That was the whole negotiation and mediation back in 2005. And that's why there's a certain percentage of these that are AT. We know, because there's been a study recently in East Lyme, that removing the wastewater from an area removes about 75% of the nitrogen that's being contributed from that area. So that's brand new. That's a report that just came out from USGS in the last few weeks. So we do understand that, if you've got an area, an embayment or something like that that's got a lot of issues with nitrogen, sewering, it's a good idea. Getting the wastewater out of that immediate vicinity is a good idea. Can I say with confidence that that's going to affect any of your particular embayments or streams or whatever? No, because you've got huge wetlands areas as well. And wetlands are Mother Nature's treatment process. It's just we can't permit them. It hasn't worked in this state.
One thing that I was maybe alluding to, you didn't mention, and maybe you don't think it is a potential impact, is climate change.
Okay. Another thing we didn't have any information on back in 2008, or really weren't focusing on. The challenge with climate change is that it takes so long to happen in the first place. If you have a group of homes with septic systems, over time, if we have, I'm going to use the other term that we're not supposed to use these days, sea level rise, because that will raise the groundwater as well. Yes, you'll lose the effectiveness of your septic systems. If you have sewers, you're not worrying about that because you're treating at some remote site that's presumably up and out of the any area that's going to be flooded in the far term. My argument in the other direction is ultimately, if you've got enough water rise there, you're not going to have homes anymore, unless you think you're in Venice all of a sudden, as you're going to be swimming from one home to the next.
Right, but
George is learning to canoe, as far as I know.
Yes.
I mean, aren't we looking at a 25 to 30-year window for this kind of?
Which scientist do you want to talk to?
No. I mean this program.
Oh, for this program, yes.
I mean, septic systems don't last forever.
I know.
We've had
Specifically on
extended
that.
life
Yes.
on many systems here in town.
Mhm.
So I guess the point is, we aren't gonna get feet of sea level rise during that time.
No, to the best of our knowledge today.
Can I interrupt you a minute?
Sure.
We have formed a new commission in Saybrook, one that we've never had before. And it's covering two subjects that you're talking about now.
Okay,
Climate change is one, and the other is the fear of flooding on our coastal water. The commission has been well received, and it is packed with a full staff. So I just want to
Okay.
mention that to you.
good.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's an
I'm
obvious
asking
issue.
from the perspective of the regulator, what you're gonna be looking at. Is this something that we should be
Okay,
considering?
what I'll tell you is this: we normally consider, when we do a facilities plan, we're looking 20 years ahead, but most infrastructure that's built is assumed to last 50. The treatment plant, no, but piping, most concrete structures have a 50-year theoretical design life. Sometimes they'll last a lot more than that. The pumps, the motors, 20 years tops is what we assume. So yeah, if you're looking to the 20 to 30-year range, the septic systems is still a good investment. If you're looking to the 50-year range,
I'm
further out
asking you as a
go.
regulator.
I don't have a good answer for you, because the official answer was both systems will protect the environment
Okay,
for as far out as we can comfortably predict.
okay.
And without knowing exactly what that sea level rise is going to be, I can't give you a better answer. It's just not there.
Couple of
Yeah,
things.
nobody really knows.
Right.
I mean, there's a range.
Sea level rise and coastal storms were some of the changing circumstances that made us reevaluate where we
Mhm.
were. To begin with, when we established this program, we developed a new set of upgrade standards. So that was more conservative than the public health code. So,
Right.
for instance, where public health code calls for 18 inches from the bottom of your leaching to high groundwater, it's 24. So that, we've been building in a little extra kind of reserve and capacity, for one thing. But on top of that, we are concerned about those two things and those other circumstances, and looking to build as we move forward with this program with an eye toward making sure that those don't negatively impact what we're expecting to have for the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, and I think
So,
that's
I
a
mean,
valid reason for
if
us to
you
consider.
If you waited until you knew everything, you wouldn't do it. We have to do what we have to do at this point in time, because we know the effect is there, we just don't know the extent of it.
Right.
But it's definitely within everybody's thinking.
Mhm. And I assume you're aware that you lost a number of septic systems here during Sandy. I mean, the pictures were pretty graphic all up and down the coastline, that if you had your septic system on the seaward side of the house, there was a chance you lost it.
Right.
Not everywhere. Cornfield Point was pretty well armored. You've got a lot of elevation plus a lot of rock there, but some of the low-lying areas took a pretty bad hit.
Yeah.
So-
And that technically wasn't even a hurricane, so.
Right. Right.
The other thing that, as far as cost is concerned, that we have not been able to assess is the cost of AT systems, because we have not gotten the delegation.
Mhm.
So, that's gonna be difficult for us to assess,
Mhm.
I think.
Well, you sort of
Because
know what
we
the
can't-
cost is going to be in terms of the capital cost. Let's be clear for the members that haven't heard this stuff. The capital cost, we've probably got a reasonable handle on. I mean, you've got a better handle now that you know what the leaching systems are gonna look like. What you don't have a handle on is the operation and maintenance.
I
Because
don't
we're
know
still
that we,
discussing that back and forth.
know how it's going to be received initially by the contractors who are gonna install it.
Mhm. Yeah, there's still a lot of variables out there, is the short version.
And can you say anything about the
What
prospects for the delegation?
What I will tell you is the official word from my bosses is, ball's in your court right now. We're waiting for something from you, which was your evaluation on how you were gonna handle, what was it, the actual, trying to think of exactly the right way to phrase it here. How you were gonna handle it when you had a problem, basically. And when something went wrong with one of these systems, how are you going to address it? You still had a lot of discussion going on about those 2 or 3 sections of the delegation. It was thrown back in your court, and my attorneys are allegedly waiting for you to respond to them.
Well, I mean, besides,
So yes, it's been interesting for those of you who haven't been involved in that yet. It's taken a little longer than what we thought when we agreed to some basic terms back in 2009 and 10.
Yeah, so, I mean, for the time being, with this first group, we didn't have that many water proximity
Right.
lots, so we kind of set that aside, but for the second group, we're gonna have more. So-
Oh, absolutely. The other, I was gonna use the word trick, but that's not the word I want. Strategy. Let's use that instead. If you decide, and if you find that it's appropriate to do a community system, one of the things we're gonna look at is saying, all right, let's say you had to do, I'm just picking an arbitrary number right now, to see where I am. Let's say you had to do 30 homes over here. Well, once you put a pipe in the ground, it's pretty cheap to connect additional homes to that, as long as you've got capacity. If you connect additional homes beyond what you have to do on your maps, let's say you add 10 homes to this, I'm more than willing to let you take 10 homes off out here. So take off the Saybrook acres,
Maple Avenue?
Saybrook acres,
Saybrook Community.
Yeah.
these properties in here along the Oyster River that are only AT because they were on the water. They're 3, 4, 5 acre lots in some cases. No justifiable reason from a scientific standpoint to put an AT lot there. But that was the agreement we had, was all waterfront or water proximity, as the phrase was changed later on, properties would be advanced treatment.
Yeah.
It was the easiest way for everyone to come to an agreement during the mediation process. If you add 10 properties here, I'll let you take 10 properties off out here, so you can finish up those neighborhoods with conventional systems. That'll save you some money as well, and probably gives you a better environmental result at the same time.
That's a little for, I mean, this scope
That's-
of work is to help us get to that point.
Right, but
Oh, yeah, this is.
that's the other
This is
lead point,
preliminary.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because frankly, it will make more sense to do, if you can do a community system, to pick up more homes and then drop off the ATs out here.
Scattered ones.
It saves you a lot of time, energy, effort, all the way around. And since the agreement and delegation was basically for more or less a number of properties, it doesn't matter where they are. You take some from here, you put them over here, it still works. My bosses will buy off on it. Assuming I'm still around to sell it. For those of you wondering what that phrase means, 2 years and counting.
Oh, no.
You don't have it done to me by then, I'm not gonna be around. I'm leaving. Retiring and
Well,
staying out
this
of business
potential
altogether.
change will be rather confusing to the public.
Yeah. Where's that guy? Or you mean your change? May or may not be. I'll tell you right now, when we were out in the field with one of your field crews, there were people who still thought you were building sewers.
Yeah.
That's actually true, because I sat there and more than once, people said, so when are the sewers coming in again? No, ma'am, we're replacing your septic system. Oh. Not everybody reads, not everybody
As Dennis
listens.
pointed out, the AT designation was some technical, some just political decision, so.
So
I
it's
mean-
not completely different than emission trading.
No.
In essence, that's what you're
Yeah.
doing, so.
Correct.
And that's been explained and sold, if you will, many places all
Mhm.
across the country, so.
No, it makes more sense to explain the actual reason for doing something than just the political decision that was made.
No,
So I'm
not
just trying to head in that direction, and there were open issues with AT to begin with that hadn't gotten resolved, still unresolved in terms of performance and maintenance, and then circumstances changed to exacerbate that, which was the coastal storms, which have been severe, and sea level rise. So, you know, the thrust is to get, as Dennis mentioned, that the overall goal here is to get nitrogen reduction in whatever fashion is the least expensive and technically efficient way.
Well, technically, the overall goal is to correct a community pollution problem. Nitrogen was never the driving force. People keep trying to go back to that.
Okay.
It happens to be at this point because the treatment plant you would have built had nitrogen reduction. That's why you were going to advanced treatment systems. But that was not the driving force. It wasn't that nitrogen was causing an immediate problem here. It's that the treatment plant that you proposed in 1989 with the discharge here was going to have nitrogen limits. So to swap out from that to another alternative, you had to basically be removing the same type of pollutants. And that's where that whole discussion went for about a decade, basically, from the late 90s into 2008. Okay, other questions?
Thank you.
No such thing as a dumb question, guys. You folks here,
I have one.
okay?
What if I am on the water and my house got damaged in the last storm and I wanted to put in an AT system? I've been told I can't.
Of course you can. The permitting process is atrocious. You can do it, it's just god-awful painful.
Well, you know, don't get me wrong. You're putting a very, very large obstacle in front of a person who wants to do something right.
Right.
It's the way I'm looking at it.
The problem is with my agency, because the permitting process was designed for large commercial and residential use. It was never thought of as being applicable to single-family residences. So the structure that's in place, the regulations, the statutes, are all built around that goal. To try and go through it for a single-family residence is doable, but absurdly expensive. That's why we're trying to find a way to delegate that authority with much less complications down to the local level.
So why don't you people up there in Hartford change it? Make it easier for somebody to take it upon him or herself to do his share versus going through the tortures of hell to do something which is a good thing to do.
Right.
Versus making a person put in a septic system and then possibly having to put in another one whenever this delegation gets approved. They do it elsewhere, I'm sure. The United States is a big place. They must have AT systems
Yep.
in private homes.
There's two answers to that one. You're probably not going to like either one. They do it in other states. They're allowed, in some states, to simply install them and just walk away. Hey, it's in there. It works. Have a nice day. My counterparts in the other states have advised us absolutely do not do that. Worst mistake they ever made was to allow installation without proper operation and maintenance. That's been one of the problems all along, is that while other states do it, the information we've gotten back is, here's all the mistakes we made, please learn from them. And every mistake that we have to learn from there adds complications to delegating it down. The other part of the answer is the part you'll like even less. Since we are downsizing state government and continue to do so, there are less and less people to do the same job.
Don't even say that with me, please.
That is.
Excuse
the
me,
answer.
I know the sixth, the supervisor, the sixth, the supervisor. I have 22 years of listening to it and seeing it in action. Don't ever say that to me,
Well,
please.
it's the truth.
Well,
I've been doing it for a long time.
Okay.
And I keep being told, take things off your plate. Do less. We've only got this many people now. You used to have this many. You've now got this many.
Okay, you don't want me to go any further on that one.
Okay, so you and I can have a
It's
long
for
discussion over a couple
another-
beers
for
sometime on
another
that.
time.
It's just as irritating to me because you're right. There should be a better way to do it. Bosses won't cut the staff.
That's
Well-
why they would consider delegating the authority to us.
Right, that was part of the whole point
Pass the
was,
burden.
let's find another way to do it. You all should be aware that, somebody help me, John, how many years ago did the statutes pass that gave the responsibility for AT to state health? 5, 6?
Probably, well, time flies, but 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Technically, that's already been delegated to the state health department. And here's the magic phrase: upon development of regulations within existing resources. That's in the statutes. The state health department won't touch it with a 10-foot pole because those phrases are there. It basically says, we're not giving you any more people, we're not giving you any more money, and you have to develop regulations, which is always lots of fun in state government. They won't touch it. We've offered to help them. They don't want it. So technically, your legislators have already put in place what they think is the fix. Okay?
And while I was,
I'm trying to smile because I've been laughing about this for so long because I gave up on crying. Yeah.
and while I was there, a child got injured. A cat scratched the child when I was in daycare.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, there was a new law pushed through because there was a child. We're talking about an entire, one community.
Yeah.
And you're saying nobody's willing to move. That's the way I'm reading it,
Right.
and that's as far
It's
as I'm
not
gonna go.
one community though, it's a lot.
Well-
This is not specific to just Old Saybrook. All right,
Well-
so you get the point. I'm as frustrated as you are with it. I hate to say I gave up on trying to find another way around it years ago because I keep hitting my head against the wall. And I know the wall's better than most people. They're not getting any softer.
I just want to mention one thing, going into my memory bank. Article in the Harbor News on what we're talking about. If a person, and this was in bold black print, if a person needed a new septic tank and he or she owned waterfront property, they would replace the system, but not with a septic tank. It would be by an advanced technical system starting at $28,000. I don't know if that's null and void now.
I don't recall that being the case.
That was put out by the Harbor News, but it's a few years now.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the way the program works.
Okay.
I'll actually defer back to your program staff, but as far as I know, any repairs you make to waterfront properties at this point, you can install an AT system, you can install something that would be compatible with an AT system, but you can't put what I'll call the black box in because there's no way to permit it.
Okay.
No
You're the temporary
reasonable way.
thing.
Yeah, the temps at best. We've had a few.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else?
John, we are trying to address your concern on a local level to do what
Oh,
we
I
need to
totally
do to solve that
understand.
problem.
And
And we've been
my,
working with residents.
my thing is, they, so I always point up north, they're the ones that have to get it moving so it is easier. I mean, like I said, that law for cats to be vaccinated and all of that went like that. Now it's
But
just been going on too long.
there's, even if that were in place, there's still a question about which way to go.
Well, and I know that there are people in this town that just want this gigantic pipe to run right through and into the river, and that's it. And I know it, so.
Well,
No one's
we
proposing
had that vote.
Yeah, we had that
And
vote.
there were some people who
That's
voted
right.
against it, so.
And there are people that still think the pipe is gonna get put in. I voted against the pipe, just to let y'all know.
Hey, John.
I couldn't tell.
Surprise.
Well, our intention is
There's-
to implement the program that was decided upon the best way possible. Thanks,
Thank you.
Denny.
Thank you, Dennis.
I'll stick around after if somebody has
Sure.
questions they don't want to ask in the
Thank you.
forum of a meeting itself.
No, getting back to the contract itself, you can see it's shorter than the terms and conditions that are attached. There was considerable effort put into that, so that any following work would have some basis already there to go forward without much difficulty. And we have attorneys who take very good care of us in terms of protecting our interests. So we very seriously, just want the board to know that we did put some serious effort into that part of the contract to make sure that it did protect the town of Old Saybrook. And we had cooperation from Wright Pierce, and I also want to point out that, as Dennis said, time is of the essence here. We have physical time restraints with regard to the weather and the ability to do these things, and then we have legal obligations that are also deadlines. So, in fact, Wright Pierce has already done some preliminary work at their own risk that was pre-approved, and I just want to acknowledge and thank them for that. So with that, I'll open it up again to any questions that the board has on the contract itself. And thank Elsa for picking up a typo, which we corrected.
It's not on this copy, is it on?
Yeah,
Is it on the official copy?
There is. I got that correction today, and
Okay.
and the
So when I-
executable copy, we'll have that.
We'll have that.
But there was, the bottom number added up, but there was one number that was incorrect on the way to that calculation.
It's on page 6.
If you look at page 6, the fixed fee, 9564, is the correct number. It adds up to 131,642.
Not 19.
Not 19.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion?
In the attachment, it's correct.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the scope of work and the contract?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we authorize the chairperson to sign this agreement between the Old Saybrook Water Pollution Control Authority and Wright Pierce Incorporated for engineering services to evaluate the potential for off-site disposal options. It's contract, and the reference number at the bottom left is T10497.
And I will second that.
Okay, I'll open up to the board members. If you have any comments or questions. Mr. Pierce is here.
You answered your question?
I did. Figured it out myself.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have anything?
No, I think, well, there's just paragraph D on page 4. Obviously, there's some dates in there that we're now running up against. We're already beyond one of them.
Yep. They were there, they were revised once we left them with the end. Those dates are there based on a start date that didn't happen. That's one reason for this special meeting. We didn't want to delay it any further. And as I said, Wright Pierce has already done some preliminary things to absorb that loss of time. So we're still, we worded this so that, these dates are goals. We expect to meet them. We'll work with it if we are a little bit delayed on them. But there was not a reason to change those because we still want to try to get there.
Is it likely we will meet the July 31 date?
That seems fairly good, I think.
If we can get access to the sites, we should be able to.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the important one.
Yeah, the stipulated judgment is September. We were trying to have as much time as we could before that
Sure.
date.
Of course.
I'd also like to acknowledge Jason Becker came back, showed up, so I don't know whose turn it was to be. Okay, Peter,
I'll be glad. Excuse me.
thank you. Any other comments or questions? John, is there anything you want to point out?
No. You have the agreement, we've looked at it, we worked with Steve and Dee, and everybody's got their comments made to it, so I think it's good to go.
It's fairly flexible, I understand, so that if we need to amend it in some way, it's...
Yeah, but John wasn't the one, I mean, Christine was the one that prepared it,
okay.
not John, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But we did design it that way.
Yeah.
And that's what took the time to get it together, and that, the reason for that extended terms and conditions on the second part.
Yeah, I like the way it's been phased so that you don't go forward the whole project. It just starts. If we accept part of it, we move on to the next piece.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
it's
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 very
very
sensible.
lean and very clean in that regard, and it doesn't commit us to anything that isn't absolutely necessary.
I think that was well thought out. So that's-
Well, it
Yeah.
was thanks to Dennis, too. Everybody participated in that.
Yeah. Okay, in that case, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We want to
Steve.
get started. It's a big step forward in terms of getting where we need to go.
Okay. I'll,
Make a motion to adjourn at 6:17 PM.
I'll second the motion,
okay.
6:17, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appreciate everybody coming to the special meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.